Another day, another FPL pod. Jack Somerville, how are you?
Joshy Forster, I'm very well, thanks. Very well. Just enjoying the bank holiday weekend here in the UK. After another very lively game week 3. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Never going to qualm about a bank holiday, and yeah, love watching football. So there's loads of that to watch as well. So I guess before we get really into how our teams did, which I know we really want to do you want to just give our listeners a little breakdown of what we want to cover?
Let's do it. Well, first and foremost, obviously it's the international break, everyone's favourite part of the season. Long 2-week wait until the next game week. So what we thought we'd do is we're not going to preview game week 4 because it's so far in the future. 2 weeks, obviously end of the transfer window, international matches happen, a lot can change. So we'll save that for a pod next week, and we'll do another special feature next week along with that game week 4 preview. So today, Josh, we thought we'd do the usual, review how the game week went with our own teams. And then we've got a list of talking points off the back of the previous game week going into the international break that we'll address sort of one by one, I think. We'll take a look at the usual XG and XA, who's top of those tables, and discuss them. And then go into our transfer plans for the international break. Do we wildcard? Do we not? We'll find out. And then, of course, we'll see how the algorithm teams fared in game week 3.
Loads to cover. Yep, thanks, Jack. I guess nothing more to do apart from just to crack on. So you did the intro. You know what? Let's keep it your way. How did you get on game week 3? What's
game
going
week
on?
3, Josh. So I took the hit in game week 3 to get Mahrez out and Antonio in.
Oh,
so the hit was good. The hit worked out well, despite Mahrez, another substitute assist for Mahrez. Antonio obviously was one of the high scorers of the week again, so that went well. But overall, 58 points. So with the -4, that's 54, which is bang on the average for the week. So similar to last week, not over the moon, not devastated, but not over the moon either. Hitting average, really, you want to be doing better than average each week if you sort of consider yourself a serious manager. So I'm not too happy, Josh, I'm afraid.
Moving in the right direction, though.
Yeah, I suppose so. Didn't captain Antonio, which was the big mistake, I think. I've stuck it on Fernandez, who obviously got the 2-pointer. And I think that's been the theme of my season so far, is poor captaincy choices, Josh, which is starting to really bite me in terms of the overall ranking. Because despite, I had Greenwood, Salah, Bamford, Antonio, they all did well. Luke Shaw finally got the clean sheet as well, but it was just not feeling good, Josh. I'm not feeling good about it. It's a strange one, because if you'd told me before the season started I'd get over 60 points for the first 2 weeks and then a 58 on the third week, I'd have bitten your hand off. But because there's so many points flying around in these first 3 weeks, it's not feeling too great. So that's me, really.
I was going to say, before we flip it across, you got to give the listeners a little bit of what are you happy with and what are you not happy with, particularly. I know you mentioned the captaincy.
Captaincy is the big unhappy. Well, it's a flip of a coin that I should know which way the coin is weighted, I think, each week. So I'm annoyed at myself, because you remember I was in the Bruno camp to begin with. Didn't have Bruno for his hat-trick haul. So bottled it, brought him in, and he's done nothing since. So I've probably been better off staying in the Bruno camp, really. So there's a lesson for you. And yeah, a bit late getting on Antonio. That's been a lesson. It feels great to have him in now. Just keep him in there. What a player he is. And broadly, I mean, that's a weird thing. Broadly happy with my other picks. Greenwood's done well. Salah is being Salah. Bamford and Ings have they're trickling in the points. They're not going crazy. But I think Ings, despite poor performances from Villa, has just worked his socks off to get me those points. God bless him. Each week, so happy with him. And yeah, defense is just defense, isn't it? Any time you get a 6-pointer from a defender, not having Trent, I'm sort of don't have much money in defense. So I'm like, whenever a haul comes in, Simicast has been great, really, in the time that he's played, and now it's time for him to go. So yeah, I think I'm just a bit I'm annoyed at how well everyone else is doing more than upset about how I've done, if that weirdly makes sense. It's the kind of jealousy, envy, bitterness that's consuming me at the moment, rather than anger at my own team, if that makes sense.
So hanging on to the coattails of the other players that we're saying, desperately trying to catch up now.
Yeah, it's a bit, you want to avoid that, don't you? You want to avoid the kind of panic move, desperate, try to get a differential for the sake of a differential. Like, I think me a few seasons ago would have thought, right, the Antonio train's gone now. I can't get on him. I need to find someone else who's going to better his points so I can catch up. But actually, the sensible thing is just get Antonio in now and then look elsewhere to make the catch up, because Antonio will just keep hurting me. So, yeah, happy with my team, really. But then also looking at a wild card. So don't know, but we'll come on to that. So I'm in a kind of limbo, Josh, is how I'd sum it up. I'm in a limbo in terms of how I feel about FPL.
Well, the good news about that is I think after the international break, when the transfer window shuts, even people that are happy with their team, I think will feel a bit in limbo as well. With all these new assets around, even tricky, if they're doing great, they'll feel the pressure to keep up the pace with people who are getting in, all these other guys. So don't feel alone after game week 3, Jack.
Thanks,
Take
Josh.
yourself a break.
Thank you for your support. It means a lot. Cheer me up even more. How did you get on?
Yeah, so 65 points for me, the smallest of green arrows. I think I'm around about 430,000 overall. So slowly crawling up the overall rankings. And yeah, I think can only be happy with that, really. Opposite side of what you were saying, captaincy choice, the second best person I could have picked, really. So Antonio was obviously got 11 points for the game week. So I picked Son got 10, so
lovely.
Far from a terrible pick. And then, Tony, finally, I was stuck with Tony, thought I hated him, suddenly loved the guy. Great Tony. He looks like he is going to be decent value at 6.5 if people want to keep him in. He might be doing something, but he finally came up with that goal after missing a few chances. So great to see. Salah, getting his 10 points as well. Shaw with the clean sheet. A few blanks elsewhere, but enough point scorers to keep me in the mix. So generally feeling pretty good.
Yeah, you've done really well. The captain's choices have been really good for you. Son, great. I'm sort of scratching my head why I don't have Son in really now. He's doing really well. And yeah, as you say, Tony off the mark against the mighty Villa. I think he will. Maybe it's one of those where he just needed that goal, get that bit of self-belief, and now he could go on a tear. I agree. Yeah, great value at 6.5. So, yeah,
some fires to put out, but then who hasn't got fires to put out at this point? So, but yeah,
very good.
Generally positive.
Very good. Happy for you. Not jealous at all.
Not jealous at all.
No, really good, Josh. Really good. Cool. So those are our teams for game week 3 just gone. Certainly mixed fortunes. Josh doing very well, me doing not so well. Shall we? Did you want to say anything else about your team? Sorry, Josh. I'm moving us on.
Well, I know in the past we've talked about fires to put out and things you're happy with. Let's not spend too much time.
We're going to come on to it, aren't we? The transfer plans.
But so how about like a sneaky one each? If you could do one thing to change your team, what would you do?
Nice go on. Quick. You go first. Go on. It's your surprise feature.
My surprise shock feature that I didn't tell you about, but now
go.
Me, Bruno Fernandes. You said it right at the beginning.
Ditch
game week 1 was maybe the anomaly. Now I think we're all thinking Bruno. Well, not we're all thinking Bruno, but a few of us are thinking Bruno. Magnus Carlsen being one of them, saying, tweeting that we said, I think it was something along the lines of RIP. He's not going to be the asset that he normally is. And at 12 million, need that moolah. So that's where I'm at. I think he's looking like the biggest fire for me to put out. Guy Fawkes on top, on fire.
Yeah, the biggest liability. Yeah. The price he's at, there's a lot of factors in there. I mean, I was already 50-50 on him earlier at the start of the season. As I said, bottled it and brought him in after he scared me with the hat trick. And just watching him yesterday, even without Ronaldo aside, just watching him, he just didn't have that great a game. I watched him with quite a big Man United fan, my brother-in-law. And he was saying, just fairly frequently, Bruno has rubbish games, but people just don't talk about it. Like Man U fans don't like to talk about it. He just has these games where he does very, very little that we saw a lot of I think we saw a lot of it in the Euros on the tail end last season. And yeah, so I would share that. You share your opinion on him there in terms of, do we move him on from our team because of his price? I still think he'll get the points over the season, but the fact he probably won't be on penalties if Ronaldo's on the pitch now, and his price means you probably can't have one of Lukaku or Ronaldo if you've got Salah in. I think we'd all agree Salah just is a non-negotiable feature of the teams. So yeah, I'd echo you with getting Fernandes out for me. I will say I've got 3 Leeds players looking at my team, and I'm not happy with Leeds. I am not impressed with them so far. Rafinha, I don't know. He's got a bit of the Saint Maximin syndrome about him, where he looks good to the eye, but the output just isn't coming. Bamford, I'm a bit more comfortable with. I think he'll get the points, but yeah, Rafinha, I'm starting to wonder if 6.5 wasn't the bargain we all thought it was for him. Yeah.
But I think if that's your one, I think that's not too bad, because the one thing that may have happened here is the fixtures have caught up and maybe will change your fires into actually shining lights, because Leeds fixtures, people are starting to say, you want to have Leeds assets in.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
So
I mean, Danny Ings,
hold and see.
Yeah, Danny Ings, Villa's fixtures really take a turn for the worse now. And despite Danny Ings racking up the points in recent weeks, I think it may be time to move on Danny Boy on as well. So yeah, like you say, it's weird, isn't it? You look at your team, it does well, but then you really look at it and you're like, oh, actually, maybe there's a whole nother 11 I'd actually rather have than these guys who actually aren't that bad. But yeah, we'll come on to that, I think, won't we?
2 things that we're not happy with, but lots of positives still.
Yeah, lots of positives.
Boom, chow. So yeah, well, I guess teams covered. Negative, Only one negative. We don't want to be too negative.
Yeah, let's not stay in negative land. Let's look ahead, shall we? First talking point, Josh, what is it?
Cristiano Ronaldo, CR7 himself. Lots to talk about. All opinion, because no one knows what the hell's going on. Jack, do you want to give me an argument for why you should have him, or are you going to give me an argument for why you shouldn't have him? I will let you pick it.
Really, again, put me on the spot, Josh, boy. I don't know is the answer. We don't know the price, do we? So when they think the price will come in tomorrow, I think, when he'll get added. So he had his medical today, I believe. So today's Monday, if you're listening. So by the time you're listening to this, you may know the price. But the general consensus price guess is about 12.5 to 13, I think. Would you say that's fair?
My guess would be 12.5. Looking at what Lukaku's priced at and thinking he's definitely going to be categorized as a striker.
Yeah.
12.5 makes sense to me. 13 seems a bit high.
13 would be more than Salah, which I just think is there's no need for that, for him to be that. There's nothing that justifies that, I don't think, considering his age and things. So yeah, I think 12.5. Assuming he's 12.5, I think he's a fine pick, particularly if you're wild carding. Would I tear up my team and panic to get him in now without seeing him? Probably not, really. Yeah, Bruno, it does the nuance, like we touched on just now, Josh, is Bruno. Him being there really does diminish Bruno's appeal, regardless of whether you bring in Ronaldo or not. So that, therefore, if you take Fernandes out, suddenly you've got the money to get Ronaldo. So in that sense, maybe it is a good idea to bring him in. But I'm not I don't know. I just don't know how he'll do. I know that sounds crazy, 29 goals last season in Serie A, but I'm not completely, until I see him, I'm not completely worried about him. I don't know, or maybe I do really want to get him. I don't know what I think, Josh. I'm sorry for such a wishy-washy answer. Tell me what you think.
Well, I think, the news is still fresh in our minds, which is why I agree with you that we're all trying to order our thoughts here, aren't we?
It's a shock, wasn't it? It was just a shock on Friday. Yeah.
And the way that I would put it is, we can't compare him to any existing assets in FPL that, apart from new signings. The only person I'm really trying to match him up in my mind and try and come up with a plan from that perspective is we match him up with Lukaku. They both played in the same league last year. Chelsea, maybe you would say, after winning the Champions League, a slightly more finished team than United, but they're both top four, you would expect. So, you know, they're both going to have similar outputs, maybe like smashing teams. So they both played a similar number of minutes in Serie A last year. So I'm just checking the stats now. 2,807 minutes for Ronaldo, 2,885 minutes for Lukaku. Let's just call it the same. 29 goals for Ronaldo, 24 for Lukaku, 11 assists for Lukaku, 3 assists for Ronaldo. So you'd say FPL points across the two relatively similar. We were talking last week about how you've got to have Lukaku in or start thinking about how you're going to get him in, not of will you have him or not. It's when are you going to get him in? And I think the same should apply to Ronaldo, really. People talk about his age, but he played as many minutes as Lukaku, scored more goals than him, also played in the Euros. The guy's a machine. I don't think 36 should play a factor there. And I think they'll both be almost nailed in on their spots if they're fit.
Yeah, I think for me, it's less his age and it's more those other things you mentioned. So price-wise, he'd be $1 million more than Lukaku. So that's something to think about. And you say Man United top 4 team. Watching them the last couple of weeks, they've looked pretty poor. Like they shouldn't have beaten Wolves yesterday, really, in my opinion. They didn't look good. If Wolves just knew how to finish, it would have been game over by the first half. I think they've got. I think Chelsea are just much better than United. So there's that. But then on the flip side, we don't know if Lukaku's on penalties. Do we yet? They haven't had one yet. If Jorginho's on the pitch, will Lukaku take the pens? And I do think that's quite important because we're pretty sure Ronaldo is going to take them off Bruno. But if Lukaku isn't on pens, I think that's enough of a make weight to make me pick Ronaldo over him. Or do you think that from the premium pool, it's just get them both in? Is that what you're saying?
I think where I'm sat personally, I would want one of them and sacrifice Bruno. Yeah. And I think there is enough medium priced assets around the 7-8 million to fill those gaps.
Yeah.
You know, whether if you go Lukaku, you could maybe go with Greenwood, even though he'll be pushed out wide. He scored 3 and 3. Let's be honest, he's probably ahead of people like Sancho at the moment.
If he gets dropped, it's a disgrace. Yeah. Sancho just hasn't fit in. I know Man United fans don't want to hear it, but he's not looked good at all. Not at all. Hasn't bedded in yet at all. So yeah.
And so that's my thinking. I think it would be your team will have to sacrifice a lot to get them both in and to keep Salah. And I'm just looking at the stats here, trying to pick apart what you were saying about, you know, Chelsea Chelsea passing the eye test more so than United. And I agree with you. So I think if you consider that as well, maybe Lukaku's playing in a slightly better team that's going to finish higher, score more goals potentially over the season, and he's $1 million less. That sounds pretty good because I mean the XG at the moment for United, I know it's only been 3 games, is 4.85. The XG for Chelsea 5.40. Not much between it, but you know Chelsea's is higher.
I'm surprised United is so high there. That surprised me. They battered Leeds first game.
Yeah,
it's 5-1 or something. So I guess that's inflated that. Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about comparing them. Say you can have 3 premiums, which I think is probably the max. So it's 3 players over 10 mil, including the premium mids. And Kane, of course, who kind of isn't really being talked about Kane at the moment, but he's back and we know he's locked in for Spurs. Didn't score at the weekend, but easily could have. It's with Lukaku, we know he's in, he's scored, he's playing. Ronaldo, we haven't seen him yet. It's hard. It's hard, man.
And the last game for Lukaku as well against Liverpool, you know, having a man sent off, Reece James, he cut an isolated figure. I don't think you can really even count the last game. So Lukaku's only really played 90 minutes where he's been in a team that's been on even footing. Yeah. And in that 90 minutes, he looked like an phenomenal threat. So
he did. He was against Arsenal, though, caveat.
Oh, yes.
Who are not very good.
The worst team in the Premier League.
Yeah, they are not looking good. But yeah, I think we're mixed on Ronaldo, aren't we? I feel like we're still weighing it up. I think when we see the price and the confirmed position of striker, I think then I'll know in my gut whether I am desperate to get him in or not. You know, it's kind of all very well speculating until you see him there and you click on him to buy him for whatever price he is. Then you do get a feeling, don't you? You just get a feeling of, do I want him or not?
Yeah, because he may need to adapt as well. You know, I know he's coming back to United, but 12 years, like he is coming from another league. He hasn't been in the Premier League for a long time.
Yeah,
moving country as well. You know, we might not see the Ronaldo that of kind of last year immediately. So it's a watch this space, isn't it?
It is. Yeah, I mean, the other thing is fixtures. I mean, if you're choosing between Lukaku and Ronaldo, Chelsea's fixtures aren't that hot the next 5, and I think United's are all right, aren't they? They've got Newcastle, West Ham. I mean, that's a very difficult fixture, West Ham now. But yeah, Newcastle, Villa, Everton. I mean, it's better than Chelsea's, I would say. So yeah, if you're a fixture kind of guy, you'd probably lean Ronaldo. But let's see what is priced at. And if you kind of have I do think it's always better to just let new signings see what they're like for one game on a general principle. But of course, this is arguably the best player to ever play the game, one of certainly. So maybe those rules go out the window a bit.
We don't know, do we?
We don't. Let's move on. We're going around in circles there. We don't know. Good. Tune in for more decisive advice. Ronaldo, don't know.
Draw a line under it.
Good.
Next talking point. Yeah. So that was, you pitched that to me. So let me pitch an even harder question back to you.
Go on.
International break. Who knows what's going on? What do people do, Jack?
It feels like a weird one, doesn't it, this one? Normally, international break, it's just a sort of eye roller time, right? Let's just grin and bear 2 long weeks without Premier League football. But this one feels even more annoying because you've got the boredom, but you've also got these crazy COVID rules of players going to red list countries. I noticed they've actually red flagged a few of the players that are confirmed. So the Argentinians, Martinez, Buendia, have actually been red flagged on FPL saying they'll definitely miss the next game due to the COVID rules. And I think you've got Martinez, haven't you?
I do indeed.
Yeah. So I mean, but I feel like that's quite ballsy from the FPL site in a way, because we still don't really know the full details of which games they'll play for Argentina, whether they'll even travel to those countries, what's going to happen. I think all you just have to do is keep tabs on it and see what's happening. If you're dead set on playing your wild card, I would play it now, pull the trigger now, get a team you like, and move with the price rises and the news that's happening. But yeah, it's just annoying. It's just so annoying. I mean, it's stupid they're even playing them again. In my opinion, certainly the red list countries that the players have been sent there, it just seems a bit of a mess, really. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an evolving story, isn't it? First of all, it was like they're not going. Then it was like FIFA kicking off. Now it looks like some clubs have put it in the hands of the players to say, well, we're going to go. So it's a kind of, some players are going, other players are not. So I know some have been released, like you said, Martinez and other Argentinian players, but I know that like Salah, for example, hasn't been released for the first game that Egypt have, but maybe released for the second. So
is that because the first game's in a red list country?
I believe so, but I mean, this is the thing. Like, there are so many different scenarios here. The blanket approach doesn't apply to different international teams traveling to different countries. You're trying to keep tabs of all the players. No one, like, it's not one size fits all. So you can't make a decision based upon that. So I think what you mentioned, you can't try to let that influence your decision. Is it worst case scenario? If they end up missing a week, yeah, that sucks. That's terrible. But if you wanted them in the first place, they're still going to be a great asset the other side of that. So
yeah,
I think can't be scared of the risk. It's only potential risk at the moment. It's not, not guaranteed, and trying to mitigate a risk that might not even happen. I mean, we're going in circles there, aren't we? If we do try and do that.
Yeah. It seems shocking to me that a Premier League team would allow a player to go or like even the Premier League as a whole, or the football world as a whole, would let a player do that, then come back and not be able to play for 2 weeks. It just seems mad that's the wheels that's turning, But yeah, we'll see. We'll wait for that confirmation, I suppose. But yeah, for now, don't worry about it. For like the next few days at least, I think don't worry too much.
Ignore those red flags on the website.
Yeah, I think so. And act as if they're all going to be playing until you definitely hear otherwise, would be my advice. Yeah, boring. It's boring, the international break, isn't it? Let's move on. I'm sick of thinking about it. Just depressing. Josh, is a big question, probably the biggest question on everyone's minds for this international break. Is it wildcard time? A, is it wildcard time for you? And B, would you advise people to play it or avoid playing it this early?
Me personally, I'm not looking at a wildcard yet. Cool. Purely because of I've been doing okay, kind of green arrows since game week 1. I don't feel like my team needs an overhaul. Yes, of course, there's a couple of players that I'd like to get out and maybe replace them with other players, but I haven't had many players that have consistently blanked. Even we mentioned like Bruno, that is a concern now. He did great in game week 1, which was only 2 weeks ago. So, there's no immediate, like, I really need to shoehorn this player out. Tony was maybe the one, and he returned. So it's another thing of, I have no immediate concerns to get out. And then the flip side, do I really, really want to use a wildcard to shoehorn someone in? The only players that I'm looking at are the new premiums, the Lukaku and Ronaldo. And as we mentioned before, just a moment ago, we need I would personally want a little bit more time to see, how they perform in their teams over the next couple of game weeks after the international break. So for me, I'm happy to sit and wait because I have the luxury to do so. But you're in a slightly different situation than me. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, you've got fair play. You've got the sort of the luxury of patience, I suppose, haven't you? Really? Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? It's difficult. Like I said, I'm sort of look at my team and I think actually they've brought me the points really, but there's just been other players that have brought more points, and I don't hate any of them. It's normally when a wild card, it's like, God, I cannot wait to see the back of you for about 3 or 4 of them. But I look at the team and I think actually it's okay. But then I sort of had to play with, okay, which players would I want to bring in? Like, really, have I got my eye on? And actually, there are quite a few. So, yeah, I'm going to let the kind of quiet disappointment of the game week just gone settle for a while. See if anything else comes out in the international break front, and then make a decision probably at the end of this week whether I pull the trigger or not. But it's players like Calvert-Lewin, Mount, Ronaldo, Lukaku, Jota, Torres, Trent, who I don't have, who I would bring in or play with bringing in if I trigger the wild card. And I've got doubts about Danny Ings, like I've said, not been impressed with Rafinha, Ayling, Tsimikas needs to go. Bruno, like we've said, needs to go as well. So yeah, what I might do is the classic kind of put one together without pressing the trigger, see how I feel about it, and then make the call on pulling the trigger. So yeah, like I said, what I want to avoid is panicking because I'm a couple of million in rank now. I don't need to panic there. We're still at the early stage of the season. Everything can be clawed back. Don't go silly and do anything drastic. And the international break could be quite good for that, to just chill a little bit.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse with the wildcard using it early and then the form very quickly moves away from those players.
Yeah.
Maneuvering around using free transfers and hits is just, it's a faff, isn't it?
It's ugly, isn't it? Yeah, it's ugly. I mean, yeah, 3 game weeks still isn't the biggest sample, is it? It's still not massive. The template has sort of formed, but I think there's still players like Torres and Jota and the unknowns of Ronaldo. It does feel like we need a bit more time in the oven with these players to really know, are they the real deal, or would it be a short-term thing? So yeah, I've got nothing against if you wildcard, if you hate your team, definitely wildcard. And the international break's a great time to do it. So you wildcard early, see which players are rising in price, and you can build that value if you're really active. So definitely not against it in principle. It's just, yeah, for my team, I'm on the fence. Yeah. So there we are. That's my wildcard opinion.
Wildcard opinion. So it's even in a situation where you feel like you're wanting to improve your rank quite drastically quickly, you're still not considering wildcard. I think which shows, isn't it? It shows how early we are a little bit, mindset wise.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. It's funny. Like normally, if I was this far behind in rank, I would pull it, no questions asked. But I think it's just been a mad 3 weeks points wise. I don't think it's going to sustain these high average points. It's got to revert back. Like there's no, like Antonio's had a double digit all every week. It's insane. But there's no way he's going to get that every week. It's just, I mean, what have the averages been? It's been like 54, which is a very high average generally, was this week. 56 was game week 2. And then 69 was the average in game week 1. Like it's mental. It's crazy how high those averages have been for nearly 8 million players. So yeah, there's no way that sustains. There's absolutely no way.
The dust is going to settle, isn't it, somewhere?
Yeah, I think it has to. Yeah, I think it has to. The goals have been flying in at an unprecedented rate. Really, is the reason. And you'd think that returns to the norm soon.
Take 2 weeks. Think about it. There you go.
That's it. Yeah, my advice: chill for a little bit, but don't be afraid to play it if you're still feeling that you're unhappy with your team. And that really goes for any week, to be fair.
Yeah, just extend that normal feeling for a little bit longer.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Should we have a little break, Josh, and then come back where we'll dive a little bit deeper into more individual, narrower topics pertaining to specific teams and players that are doing well.
Yeah. Take a little break, then have a deep dive. And we're back. So Jack, we're going to continue, just pick up exactly where we left off, continue with the talking points after game week 3. Next, we just discussed wildcard. Now we want to pick up on a topic that we covered quite quickly last week, City assets. Last week, we said, no, Pep. This week, what are we saying?
Yeah, another 5-0 drubbing by City, Josh, wasn't it? Another really impressive, really dominant display. Again, against a terrible Arsenal defence. But that being said, some players seem to be playing every game now. I was very quick to ridicule City asset owners, and a few people we know obviously caught that and threw that back in my face rightly this week. Specifically Torres, who is looking like he might be nailed in that number 9 spot, and he's reaping rewards. I think he's an all right player. I don't think he's one of City's best players, but the fact that he's in that 9 spot now, and Jesus seems to have moved out to the wing, it's looking really good for both of Torres's owners. So I think, do we bring him in? Do we bite the bullet and bring him in? He rose in price last night. People are obviously thinking they should bring him in. What do you think of Torres before we talk about some of the others?
I think Torres in particular, you're right, because of the position he plays and the fact that they haven't been able to buy a striker. They've been actively looking for a striker. We know that. They haven't got one so far. The window's not closed yet. That could change. And we will, be able to talk about that before game week 4, because I'm sure we'll do another quick coverage closer to the section. As it stands, his performances have been great. He has very little competition in that position. He looks like one of the more nailed players. Right from the beginning, we said, if you can pick someone who is going to start most games for City, the opportunity for points there is incredible. I was just looking at the XG for them as a team, 9.02. No one's near them after that. The next highest, I think, is West Ham, which is 6.74. They are just smashing teams.
They are, but it's silly. They've always been like this, haven't they? And then they lose the odd 1-0 to random teams. But the thing with Torres as well is his price is so good that actually you can absorb that occasional benching, I think, easier than if you have a Mahrez or a De Bruyne or someone a bit more expensive and they get dropped. It's just you're relying on some randomer off your bench. So yeah, Torres at 7.1 mil. He is. I take back what I said last week. I think he's one we've got to look to get in now. I think he really is. If I was wildcarding this week, I think he'd be on the sheet.
It seems crazy that one additional week can offer you this much more confidence. But given the context of what Pep's been like in the past, having one person start 2 games in a row and him look,
let alone 3. Yeah,
exactly. I think it does speak volumes. So
yeah. I mean, the other one is Grealish. Yeah, Torres. We think he's a great buy. I think he's a great buy now if you can get him. What do you think? What about Grealish, the other attacking player to have started all 3 games for them? They've paid 100 mil. He's putting his faith in him. I think he's got a goal and an assist in 3 games, which I guess on paper is good. But when you consider 2 of those games have been 5, they've scored 5 in each. It's not amazing from Jackie Boy. What do you think about Grealish?
Interesting question. I think Torres, if he starts, and maybe Grealish is more likely to continue starting consistently because of his price tag. But head to head, taking the selection off the table, I think Torres's ceiling is higher than Grealish's.
Yeah, it seems that way. Points. Yeah, it definitely seems that way.
From what we've seen so far, but also I just think from a positional perspective, if you had to pick between 2 players, let's not even consider their price actually at this point, but 2 players in the same team, one's playing number 9, one's playing more predominantly out wide. Torres is going to be in the box, touches in the box, opportunity shots in the box. Give me that guy, please, the guy in the box.
Yeah, I mean, if you compare Torres and Grealish XG and XA, I mean, Torres 2.09 XG in 3 games, 0.02 XA for Torres. So you can tell he's just as you say, Josh, the focal point. He's the finisher of their moves, and he's been told to do that. Grealish, I think he's 6th for XG, which is really good, 1.27, but 0.92 for XG. So 1.27 XA, 0.92 XG. So not at all the finisher of the move, and playing much more the provider. Same with Mahrez. So yeah, and Torres being 0.9 cheaper than Grealish. If you're picking one of the 2, I think it's Torres. But I don't think Grealish is a bad pick in himself for that City team. Maybe a bridge too far having 2 of them, because if both don't make it into the squad, which is possible with Pep, then you're in a real pickle that week, aren't you?
You asked the question that I was going to ask you before I got there. Just literally, I think we've mentioned the risk of having any. Now we're saying, get on the train, but cover yourself. Ferran Torres looks like the perfect halfway house there. Decent price.
Next week we'll say get 3 of them.
Yeah, exactly. So learn more as you go along, but dip your toe with a Ferran Torres.
I would dip my toe now for sure in a big Torres pond of water. Yeah,
Ferran. Make sure it's Ferran Torres. No other Torres.
Yeah, all the Torres is irrelevant. Good. All right. Well, there's City, and well done to all Torres owners out there. You know who you are.
Yeah.
A begrudging well done.
Don't name names.
No, we're not naming names. Right, Josh. So that was City assets. The West Ham train is still going full throttle, and Antonio doesn't seem to be stopping. Those hamstrings seem to be holding out. Another phenomenal performance. Talk to me about West Ham.
Yeah, I mean, we're all spiritual Hammers fans at the moment, aren't we? Like we want them to succeed, and they are fulfilling our wishes from an FPL perspective. Yeah, they look like they've got great assets. Even when you look past Antonio, they're still, Fornal, as you mentioned last week, they look good. I like them still. Next fixtures: Southampton, United, Leeds, Brentford, Everton. Not terrible by any means. You can see them scoring goals there. Most people are on the attacking assets. If I was doing a wild card, I'd probably maybe take Kufal out.
Yeah, they don't seem amazing at the back, do they?
And just go for 2. I know I said this last week, triple up, but we've had another week now. Looks like they will continue to concede goals and just go all out attack. So if I was wildcarding, I'd just double up on an attack and probably go Antonio and Ben Rama or Fornals. Take your pick of the other 2. Probably Benrahma because he plays more like a second striker and Fornals plays more out wide. But still love West Ham. Not much has changed really, apart from maybe that defensive frailty. Just keep your focus on the midfielders and the attackers. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely concur. With that. For the prices they are as well, the midfielders, Fornals or Benrahma, I think they're really good. They're not only enablers, they will get you points. And Antonio, I mean, he's in the league of his own at the moment. He's in the top 5 for both XG and XA for all players for these 3 weeks. He is a premium asset priced at a midweight, isn't he? Really, I think he's while he stays fit, he's a must own. He's about as must own as they come.
The form player in the Prem at the moment.
Yes, indeed, and fair play to West Ham. They keep on rolling.
So nothing's changed. Just keep. I think most players have got West Ham assets. What would you say to someone who, if they don't have any Antonio, obviously
don't have any Antonio. If you've only got one, and you can afford, and you're looking for a transfer to make, it's probably still Benrahma, I would say, but Fornals is looking good as well. I don't think, how much is Fornals? I don't actually know how much he is.
I'm not sure about the price rise. I think he was on 6.
He's 6. He's 6, and Benrahma's 6.4. So
Benny's really knows price rises.
People are just going for Benrahma, aren't they? Of the two, I mean, 1.5% own Fornals. So if you want that differential, then Fornals is your man to look at 0.4 cheaper than Benrahma's. Benrahma's nearly 30% owned.
I think there's a reason for that though. Watching the game, Fornals is almost, in order of where they are on the pitch. Antonio is right at the top, always at the top. Benrahma slightly behind him, second to support. Fornals then comes in as the next person, along with maybe Bowen.
Sure, yeah.
Wide, and maybe he's playing out of his skin to get the returns he's got so far. But it looks like Benrahma is always going to be closer to Antonio and therefore more involved in the points. Hence why I guess he's had all the price rises. But but that differential pick is potentially Fornals.
Yeah, totally agree. Both good picks. Yeah, keep going West Ham. Very good. The next one, Josh, I've got on the list is Firmino injury ? But I think we can expand that general to Liverpool assets and how you feel we should be approaching Liverpool assets now for the next sort of few game weeks. So for one, is Firmino injured? Do we know?
He's having a scan, I think. So I believe,
and
I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but it was a hamstring related injury, which we all immediately as football fans and players think, no.
Oh yeah, not a good sign.
But the scan will reveal, obviously, whether that affects our decision going forward. What I would say is if it's not a long-term injury, we've had a glimpse of what it may look like going forward with Jota. Doesn't matter how well he's playing, doesn't matter if he's banging him in, Klopp will still pick Firmino in the big games against big opposition, I think. Jota's been incredible for Liverpool so far, and yet you play Chelsea at home, he sticks Firmino up top, and I think that is a snapshot.
Correct me if I'm wrong, he came on for Firmino after the injury, is that right?
Yeah, so I think Firmino got injured and then Jota replaced him there. So it wasn't like tactical Jota come make an impact. It was Firmino's injured, Jota, you're coming into the game. So if Firmino is not injured long term, that is still very much a risk for people that have Jota or want to bring in Jota. But I guess you could compare him somewhat to Greenwood, maybe not in such mercurial form, but now with Ronaldo coming in and the competition that they have in wide areas for United, kind of similar at Liverpool for Jota, he's always going to be up against some big boys to lose minutes. So yeah, Firmino will wait on the scan, but Jota's still a great option if he's on the pitch, and that's the biggest question mark.
Yeah. So I mean, if it's confirmed Firmino's out for say a month, Jota a no-brainer?
For me, yeah. What I would say is, I guess, do you want to double up on Liverpool? If you've already got Salah, then Liverpool have got Leeds, Palace, Brentford next 3, then City, then Watford. They're looking like that. There's some tasty fixtures.
So it's got goals all over them, I think.
Yeah, and you've got to say that even if it's not a major injury for Firmino, he's going to miss the next one, maybe the next 2 with a hamstring injury after the international break, possibly. Even if it's a minor injury, could it be 2-3 weeks or whatever? And if he's out of the starting lineup, you've got to say Jota's next, that first name on the team sheet after him. And yeah, maybe a slightly cheaper option to get into that, like to have 2 attackers for Liverpool. I definitely look at it, but definitely for those next five fixtures, because I think out of all the top 4 or 6 teams, Liverpool look like they've got some of the better fixtures across the next five game weeks.
Very good. Very good.
You already own him, right? So, no, you don't. You don't own him.
No, I don't. I was thinking, well, he's on my wildcard list, I think. So there's him, Torres, and Mason Mount, actually, with the midfielders I'd sort of earmarked as potential to bring in. But yeah, we'll see. I think if Firmino, do we know when we'll know about the scan? It's generally a few days after, is it? Or I don't know.
I believe it was reported for today was the scan, but I can't remember
again wait
correctly. But we should find out during the international break. So
yeah,
before the next game week, know what the deal is.
Thank you, Josh, for the Liverpool update. Great. Very useful. Welcome. Moving on to the final sort of section of this final piece in this section, we look at the XG and the XA top performers so far of the last 3 weeks. So we won't sort of go into minutiae and deep dive into all 5 of them, or all 10 of them, I should say, because we've talked about a lot of them already. So the top of the XG table. Well, Josh, why don't you lead us through the individuals top in the XG charts at the moment?
Covered a lot of these names already, but top to bottom, we've got Antonio, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and then Ferran Torres is actually coming in 3rd.
Yeah.
And then Lukaku, and then Callum Wilson. So we haven't mentioned much of Callum Wilson because I think Newcastle. But out of those, who would you want in your team? Just very quickly.
Yeah. I mean, Callum. It's one of those players I've never wanted Callum Wilson in my team, even in the years he's done well when he was at Bournemouth, at Newcastle. Really more because of the teams he's playing with, and sort of side note, his injury proneness. Like, I think I read something after that game that he got an injury to his thigh, actually, following this game. I don't know if he's flagged or not. But a bit how I used to judge Antonio is I was loath to start with. Some people started with Antonio and Wilson at the start of the season, didn't they? And obviously they've done very well from it. But because, I could foresee just as well them doing well as both of them getting injured. And if you had Danny Ings as well, those 3 up top, you could suddenly find yourself with 3 injuries after game week 1. But 3 brilliant strikers. And yeah, the fact is, India, it just does seem to, even when Newcastle are playing badly, a couple of times a game, they'll work across it. And Callum is so good at just getting on the end of them, isn't he? And he's so good at creating something from nothing. I'd say he's the master of those kind of goals. So yeah, I'm not looking to really bring him in now. I think there's better strikers available in those. They're just such hot positions now, particularly with Lukaku and Ronaldo coming in. And I think Callum Wilson is, if you've got him, keep him. But I think there's better options. What do you think about Wilson?
Agree. I think out of those 5 that we've listed, for right now, I'd want Antonio, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, and Torres. I think Lukaku we've mentioned, one for the future. Mm-hmm. Wilson, you may call me out on this, but temporary form, he's not going to be this hot. It won't be in the top 5 XG for the whole season. So I'll take the other ones, please.
Yeah, fair. DCL, I mean, phenomenal stuff from him.
Still doing
just looks really dangerous, doesn't he? Really dangerous. Like 3 goals, 3.16 XG, end of everything. That penalty scuffle was a bit interesting though with Richarlison. So Richarlison wanted it. The other players kind of bullied him out of it and gave it to DCL because he's obviously the designated taker. And then did you see Benitez afterwards said
comments?
Yeah, he said, wasn't it that if there's the first penalty per game, Dominic Calvert-Lewin will take, and the second one, if there's a second one, then Richarlison will take it. But that just feels like a weird way to appease Richarlison, because how often do you get 2 penalties in one game? Very, very rarely. So that just feels like a kind of, yeah, sure, Richarlison, yeah, you can have the next one.
Yeah, and despite that, he still wanted, like, if that was communicated before, like he said, then he still wanted to take that first penalty nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, he's a bit of a nutcase, isn't he? I think Richarlison, he's a bit hot-headed for sure.
But are you worried about DCL and this injury concern? I mean,
again,
talk of him having a broken toe.
These mid-range strikers, yeah. I mean, is that just a classic international break? Don't touch my player move from Benitez, and he just keep playing. Broken toe is just such a. I mean,
broken toenail, maybe.
Yeah, I mean this. Yeah, I mean the pain. That's what those painkillers are for, aren't they? The silly little broken toes.
Inject it. Done.
Inject it. I'd agree with you about Lukaku, Calvert-Lewin, and Antonio being the sort of prime, the ideal 3 out of a very good pool. To be honest with you, I mean, again, looking at my team, Ings, Bamford, I think they're still good picks. Really, I mean, maybe Ings less so, and so it would be tough to see Bamford go, I think, because I think he will do well. But those 3 are the 3 of a very good bunch, yeah.
Like you said, a lot of points out there, a lot of options.
Yeah. And obviously Torres, we've talked about, but another great option, thankfully, a midfielder in the game.
So that's goals. Now onto assists. The XA.
Talk to me.
Go through the XAs?
Yeah, I can go through them. Sure thing. So we've got Jesus, top of the tree. Then we got the man Trent, Mason Mount, Antonio again, and Mahrez, Riyad Mahrez. So Antonio, like we said, he's in both charts. Unbelievable to be in both. Man on fire. Definitely get him 100%. What do you make of? There's 2 Man City players in there, Josh. Neither of whom are Torres or Grealish, who we recommended getting. What are your thoughts on Mahrez and Jesus?
I think the same summary that we concluded earlier applies now. You may need to have a City asset now. I wouldn't advise having more than one. If I was going to pick one, it's halfway house Torres.
Yeah.
Behind Torres, my next favorite would be Jesus, actually, considering how well he's playing out wide. And not only when he gets the ball out wide on the touchline and running at players, but also when it's on the other touchline or in the middle, he's making those runs into central areas as well, hence why he got his goal. So I think he's a really a big threat, but I think he is a preference still behind Torres. And if we're only having one, Torres takes that spot for me. So that's it for Jesus and Mahrez. And Trent-wise, I've already got him. I think he's great. And Mount's on my watch list, but there's so many great, well-priced midfielders there. I think he takes up a little bit more money when there are cheaper ones available that we may need to go for to get, your Lukaku's and Ronaldo or Ronaldo's later on.
Yeah, like a Benrahma's probably a better pick than a Mount, isn't it? With a fair bit cheaper, over $1 million cheaper. Yeah.
And then enables you to, not that he's an enabler, but between the 2 options, that allows you to do other things in your team. So bottom line, Antonio and Trent own both already, so I'm not looking at the other guys. What are you thinking for these 5?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a big fan of Mount. I do like Mount. Now they've got Lukaku, I do think he is more tempting, but I am inclined to agree with you at 7.5. He's probably a bit much,
because you do need Greenwood and Jota.
Exactly, and those 2 are better. I think they're better options.
And there's others cheaper that are maybe playing better than him already.
Yeah, I think there are. So he's unlucky there. But I might have a play and see if I can fit him in, but I'm not sure I can. Certainly not with 3 strikers that I want. Yeah, Jesus, I agree, he's definitely a threat. I do just think Pep rotation threat still applies to him. And the fact that he's a striker in FPL, it's just a spot that's a spot that can be filled with a better striker option that's cheaper than him. So I think he's a no-go for me. And Trent, now the Tsimikas wild ride is over. I'm looking to get Trent back in as that Liverpool defensive cover. How did they look? I didn't watch the game. How did they look in general defensively certainly before James got sent off? Because I thought in the previous game, who was that against? Was it Burnley?
Burnley.
Yeah, I actually thought they looked a bit ropey, and Alisson had to make some good saves to keep them in. From a purely clean sheet perspective, Liverpool, what's your general confidence in them?
Still not very confident. I think what I would say in the context of that, though, is I don't have any confidence in any team, maybe bar before the Liverpool game. We talked about Chelsea's XA was very low. City probably are the other ones that I'd say are so dominant up front that no one even gets a chance to take a shot at them. But to focus on Liverpool, I think they are maybe next behind those two teams in terms of my confidence for them to keep a clean sheet. So they are still one of your great options to try and get a clean sheet that you can have confidence in, because I think they would rank above United for me in that regard. And then when you look at Trent, you're not just thinking about the clean sheets, you're thinking about everything else he does. He is in the XA, top 5. So I think you're kind of covering two bases there quite firmly. But he is quite expensive for a defender. There's no cheap way into that. 2 fullbacks for Liverpool now. So do you want to look elsewhere? But I think in terms of your wide defensive players, often we're like sport for choice. I think he's stand out at the moment, the best option of anyone.
Yeah, I do agree. I need to get him back, really. Need to get him back.
Alonso, would you be tempted by an Alonso? Chilwell, just Chile sat on the bench.
Yeah, what's going on with Chilwell? Yeah, it's like the Euros all over again. No Chilwell time. He just loves Alonso, doesn't he, Tuchel? And he is great. And I love Alonso as a historical FPL asset. Like he's been a dream. When he was in his prime, he was just a must. He was the Trent of back then, wasn't he, really?
Yeah.
And he was brilliant. Yeah, it's just another risk. It's just a bit too risky again. Alonso, similar to Mahrez. I know Mahrez is in this XA table. He's the 5th highest XA, but I just don't. As soon as he left my team, it was just a relief. Like it was just I don't need to stress about that team sheet again. I'm going to go right back into it by getting Torres in probably, but it was just that I don't miss not having Mahrez. I'm not sad I don't have him anymore. Despite I know when he's on the pitch, he can be lethal. And I'd feel the same with Alonso. I'd just be waiting for that Chilwell start. I think when the European games start, it's going to be very interesting with those European teams and whether it changes their Premier League lineup. So I can imagine when it starts, Alonso might be rotated a bit more.
Yeah, that was our worry with Chelsea assets, full stop, wasn't it? So
yeah.
Okay, but yeah, that's XG and XA covered. The only point I wanted to mention in general is we've covered a lot of cheaper options in midfield and maybe some strikers in the past like Tony. Do you have any other standout players looking at in the future towards, your Ronaldos and your Lukakus? And if anyone is wildcarding, is there anyone hiding that you would think, yeah, they're a great enabler, maybe at 6 million or below?
Enabler wise, yeah.
I mean, you've mentioned Norgard already last time. We've mentioned I've got Livramento as a kind of replacement for Simicast. Those are 2 that have come out. I'm just clutching at whether there are any other hidden gems there that anyone hasn't thought of already.
Well, I think in terms of teams generally, Wolves. So even though Wolves have lost every game 1-0 so far, they've sort of been the inverse of Spurs, haven't they? Where they've lost every game 1-0 instead of winning them all 1-0, and undeservedly so, similar to Spurs winning every game 1-0 and maybe undeservedly so. So I actually think even though Wolves have lost every game, a Wolves defender, maybe a Semedo or a Cody or a Saiss, would actually be a good signing now, as crazy as that sounds. I mean, Cody 4.5, Saiss is 5, Semedo's I think 4.9. I think he dropped from 5. But yeah, I'm actually looking at Wolves' defence now off the back of 3 straight losses. So maybe I'm going crazy, but I think it's somewhere to look. Yeah, and Brentford, I mean, Tone is a striker, but he is easily the best cheap striker by far. Oh, actually saying that, I do like Armstrong at Southampton. I think he is going to be amongst the points this year. He's looked really active in every game.
He's had so many
won a
great
penalty,
chances.
didn't he? He did win a penalty this week, I think. But yeah, he scored, hasn't he? But you're right, he's had a lot of chances. But I think that's really promising, especially in a team like Southampton where they're not going to create too much. The fact that we're talking about him and we've noticed him, if you're playing 5 in midfield maybe, and just plan on the 2 strikers, then I think you could do a lot worse than Armstrong as your third striker.
Start on the bench. Okay, the two that I was thinking of in my head potentially were Adama Traore, 6 mil.
Yeah.
Ran riot, but finished product again lacking.
What is it with them?
Are you interested?
Yeah, I'm not. I think he's in my draft team. I think I drafted him in. Yeah, I mean, if you're obeying the XG and XA gods, and really the eye test gods in a way, because he's, as you say, he was completely destroying people again. It is just that end product from him and Wolves generally. You know, he did put it on a plate a couple of times for their other players who mucked it up. So it's not just him that puts me off him, if that makes sense. It's their other strikers and their other midfielders. I mean, Jimenez is still coming back to fitness after that horrendous injury, I think, and match sharpness. Yeah, I don't hate the Traore pick, but it's Traore. I mean, look at his track record. We've always said this about him, haven't we? God, he looks amazing.
There's a reason why he's
handful of assists, handful of goals. Yeah.
Final one. That's a no for Traore.
Yeah, from me.
So you said we've got someone who passes the eye test but doesn't have any return. Now we've got someone who has returned at 5.5 million, Damari Gray.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Sanchez should have done better with the goal, but you can't deny it. Has he got 2 now?
He's got 2. So his returns have been blanked in the first game week against Southampton with 2 points, and then obviously second got a goal, 9 points. Third game week got another goal, 8 points. So 19 points returned so far.
I think there's an enabler. I don't think you can do much better for 5.5 in midfield. But I would say I saw like in a forum, it might have been like a thread on his goal or something, but the Leicester fans were very much saying, yep, he'll do this. He'll look really good for a couple of games and then he'll just disappear for the rest of the season. They're just waiting for that time to happen. And some players are like that, aren't they? It's like that's the Ross Barkley syndrome. Like looks like a world beater for 2 or 3 games. And then a switch is flipped and he just becomes completely a passenger for the rest. So yeah, as an enabler, maybe so. It's a weird one though, at that price, because I feel like if you're probably not going to start him if you're buying him. So therefore, just go a bit cheaper and put the 5.5 into your team. Yeah, that 5.5 price, unless they're a real bargain and you want to start them because they're so good, then just go cheaper and invest the money in your actual starting 11. So yeah, that's all I would say there about him. Are you more tempted, would you say, than I am?
No, I agree with you on both points. Watch list, but there's better options.
Yeah, cool.
Great. So that's everything to cover for now. I guess there's not too much to focus on transfer plans because we've got a long time to wait. So, and we will be doing another pod before game week 4, so we can really drill down after the internationals to say this is what we want to do.
Yeah, I'd take a look at wildcards. Yeah, whether we triggered them or not, I think we'll know by then, won't we? So you're right, Josh.
The algo teams, Jeff.
Algorithm teams. Let's finish on a high. So,
yes, boys.
As a quick reminder, the algorithm teams, we're managing one team for a friend who is the XG11. So a team purely based on XG and picks and transfers determined by just the XG data. And we've got Differential United, a team where the only rule is any transfers you make have to be players under 5% owned. And we're going to be following them throughout the season. So game week 3 for the boys.
XG11. The XG11. Yeah. Come on, how did they do?
XG11 got a respectable 56 points, so 2 above the average. XG11 continues a good season, doing much better than my own team still. 217 points altogether. I think an overall rank of, they're in the top million, so 982,000, doing really well. Again, the captaincy was on Antonio because he's got the highest XG and he got the most points, 22 points. It seems so simple, Josh, doesn't it? Why don't we just think that? Why didn't I captain him? Crazy.
Computers don't get affected by emotion.
Oh, they don't. I am so affected by emotion. So yeah, the points really for the XG11 came from Antonio captaincy, Jamie Vardy with 12, again, someone I just would never go near, but the data says different, and the data rewards the pick. Vardy got 12, Salah got 10, and then everyone else blanked, actually. So El Ghazi didn't come in. The Norgard was the transfer. His XG has now actually fallen away. So I think we'll be looking to either replace him in this team or certainly bench him for next week. And the defenders of Konza, Sace and Tsimikas all blanked as well. But it just showed the power of a good captaincy, and a couple of other good picks can carry a team through to an above average score. So yeah, I think we'll cover the transfers for these teams in the next pod. So next week's pod.
Just in case injuries
so this
and
is
stuff makes sense.
Exactly, yeah. So we'll wait until then to decide who to transfer in. But there's certainly some good options amongst the XG data to bring in for the XG11. So XG11 continues a strong start.
Yes,
the differential United, however, isn't having a very good season, I'm afraid. So mustered a lowly 39 points this week. Mane was captain. Well. Mane was captain. Did get a return, Mane, of 5 points, got an assist. But apart from that and Armstrong and St. Maximin getting some points with an assist each. Oh, no, Maximin got a goal, didn't he? Maximin got a goal, Armstrong an assist, a Luton clean sheet, but then blanks from Jimenez, Bowen, Sterling, Alonso, Chalobah, and Meslier meant that they didn't do too well. So they're sitting at a rank of 6.3 mil out of 7.7 mil. Not looking too good.
Ouch.
For the differentials, Josh.
It's a long season, diffs.
It is. Let's see what happens. We'll see which diff we bring in next, and hopefully they can turn their fortunes around. So that's it.
Nice. Yeah, great to see the updates from the boys. Let's see how they continue. You know me, I'm back in XG11 all the way.
XG11 is looking great. I wish I was XG11. I should have. Next season, I'm just going to XG11 it. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing.
Great. So yeah, we've hinted it already, but we're going to do another pod before the international break and before the end of the international break ahead of Gameweek 4. So we'll be back in touch when we know a little bit more about everything. Very good. But until then, enjoy the international break. And as you said, just, chill out. Just chill out. Put your legs up. Take a breather. This week's a free week. Take a breather. Let the dust settle on whether you had a good or bad week. And then approach the following week with more clarity and make your decisions then. I think that's the best way to do it. Strong message. All right. Well, we'll take a break and we'll speak to you on the other side. Cheers. Cheers, Joshua. Cheers, Jack.